All right, now without further ado, let's introduce Marcie Wingate, how to properly work telesales. And Steve, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you for the birthday wishes. And I want to wish you a happy birthday coming up in 2 days on the 6th. So happy birthday to you. Very excited for today's guest, Mrs. Marcie Wingate, who I had the pleasure of having down in the office a couple months ago, had her on a podcast. So Marcie, how are you today? A little round of applause for you.
I'm doing just great. How are you? I'm happy to be here and hopefully I can give you guys some value.
Yes, I'm very excited to hear from you because you've done so much in the way of telesales. It's really the way that we're moving forward, and I really want to dive into it. And what I find about telesales training is, I feel like we graze over some stuff. I want to get to the nitty gritty of it because I think that's what agents need to kind of see the good, the bad, and the ugly so they can have success. So first, very nice office. Is that like in an office or in your house?
This is my office. I have an office in the small town that I live in, but I do also work from my home quite a bit as well. So it just depends on, what I'm doing with my kids. And if I actually have my son here in my office with me, because I'm just making it work no matter what, which is kind of the awesome thing about being here at Family First Life.
I love that. And you're in Idaho, correct?
Yep, I'm in North Idaho, about 40 miles from Canada. So this is a small town called Sandpoint. About 7,000 people live in the town and pretty remote in the counties around me. I moved here from Coeur d'Alene about 9 months ago, and I knew that I needed to just take a jump into the telesales because we just don't have enough people up here for me to make the in-homes work, as well as the weather in the winter is pretty brutal. So I'm seeing the ground now for the first time in a few months.
Wow. What I love about what you just said is a lot of times adversities and things that we think are problems become solutions because people learn to become innovative. You didn't have the lead flow all, around you to make it happen in person. So you had to dive into telesales. So you started how many months ago?
I started about 14 months ago. So I ran my first appointment the weekend before I went to the convention 2021. And I protected a couple families, and then we went to convention in Phoenix, and I realized that I was going to go full force and just take it from there and give it my all.
Got it. And now you're on average, what, 25 to 30 families a month, give or take?
About 30. Yep, I do. I submit about 12 to 15 a week. So all remote, all over the phone.
That is awesome. So let's start here. So the big thing for me is lead spend when it comes to telesales versus in the field. And obviously there's the offset of like, hey, you're not driving gas, this time, this, that, the other. What do you average spend on leads, and do you utilize work spots?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a member of WorkSpots. I spend about 3,000 to 3,500 a week in leads. However, I didn't start there, of course. Like, who has that money to put in right away? It was a building process. So as an entrepreneur, you have to understand that you have to build your business over time. And sometimes it doesn't happen overnight, but you just have to consistently put in the work.
What would you say you started spending right away? And probably when you started, we just had gotten on WorkSpots, I think.
I started with about 700 to 1,000 a week. And then after the transition of telesales, because you don't have the expense of gas and drive and the time of that it takes to meet families, you do have to spend a little bit more in leads because I need to have 40 appointments a week.
Okay, perfect. And that's going to get me to the next thing in the way of time. So obviously you're in the office on a Monday. What does your typical schedule look like? Obviously you have kids, so I know you do a lot of different things to work around, their schedules. What does your traditional schedule look like telesales wise?
Well, ideally, I'd like to have an appointment even before my kids get up at maybe 6 in the morning because I'll do some appointments from the East Coast. If maybe that's a no-show, but I take my kids to school. My son goes to the bus at 7:30. Take my daughter to work or to her preschool at 8, and then I'll have an appointment 8:15 until 3 when I go pick her up from school, and then I'll have appointments into the evening, pretty intense Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday I still try to keep the same amount of appointments, but I kind of trickle it down on Thursday and Friday, and then I do appointments Saturday morning and Sunday afternoon. So I'd rather work maybe a little bit less each day because I have kids, but I'll work 7 days a week. But because it's an appointment over the phone, I mean,
Right.
so easy. You just I can be home on the weekends and I can just call my clients, from Sunday afternoon or Saturday morning when my kids are playing. So I work it completely around my kids because they're my priority.
I love that. And what's amazing here is the ability to do that. I think it's a double-edged sword sometimes because I do think some people will not work it disciplined enough. Because I'm sure if I asked you, you're probably on the phone 40 hours, give or take, probably in that vicinity a week, right?
Yeah, I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone quite a bit, but I mean, this business and this opportunity is such a blessing for me that I mean, when I have an appointment scheduled, there's no way, unless I'm in the car driving and my kids are in the car and maybe I have to be a few minutes late, then I'm not going to go to that appointment. Even if I have to be, I mean, I've even ran appointment. I mean, I'll run an appointment in my car if I have an emergency come up, or because with two kids, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. There's always something that comes up, and you just make it work no matter what. And that's what I've committed to. So it just takes the commitment.
Yeah. So guys, if you're doing the telesales and you said to yourself, I'm going to commit myself to 40 hours of actual quote unquote work on the phone, but you could do it when it's convenient around your children. How much better is that than I go to my job 40 hours and I got to clock in and out 8 to 5 or whatever it is? Here you have the flexibility, but I think there's a double-edged sword sometimes where people are like, hey, I can't, like, oh my God, I have to work 40 hours. Whereas before they worked 40 hours, but here they're going to make 3 times the money. Right.
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just have to make the decision that you're going to do this. I had to, for me, when I moved to the place that I'm in now, the small town, I had to. It was either sink or swim because I don't have the people around me. So I kind of played around with like the Zoom sales and the telesales, but I realized you don't even really need to do Zoom sales. It's like you can just really go for the phones and just do the appointments right over the phones and make it work no matter what for you. The way it works for you, because the way it works for me might not be the way it works for everyone else, but I'm definitely happy to share anything that I've done to give you guys value to help you get to where you want to be.
What would you say in the way of, I guess you'd say, dials in a day, right? Like how many dials a day, like a Monday, do you think you make? And do you try to do the one call close first and then book an appointment if you can?
Yes. So you have to be really in tune with people over the phone, which, it comes pretty quickly. If you hear that someone's like in the car, for example, I'm definitely not going to run that appointment over the phone for one call close. I'm going to book an appointment. I book everything through Calendly and I try to book it for the same day or the day after. So you want to keep your appointments very close to when you first touch base with that client. I'll call in the morning. As soon as I hit about 20 to 30 a month, I hired an assistant to help me. So I just because I'm by myself with my kids. So any way that you can outsource anything that takes away time from you actually making money is definitely good to do. Even if it's only maybe you're paying someone a couple $100s a week, that extra help to help you save the policies, to maybe help you book an appointments is definitely going to work in your favor. So the one call closes are great for internet leads. You can those really work well. You can also book the appointments. I book everything through Calendly. So that's been a really great system that helps me. It's about maybe $12 to $15 a month. And then the client will receive confirmation text messages as well as emails to remind them. With the emails, I've noticed some people some people of course like will cancel the appointment through email, but a lot of times they'll reschedule the appointment through email or then follow up with me later on, maybe like a month later, because they have my email address.
Good point. So if you're running that 40 a week, you're probably at about that 10 a day. So what type of a window do you give yourself, understanding obviously a higher no-show percentage on a telesale? What does that window look like when you're booking it out?
In between the appointments?
Yeah. So like when you're scheduling your day, if you schedule 10, Do you give us like a half hour in between? Do you double stack stuff, anticipating no shows?
Yeah, so I definitely, if it's like a less maybe qualified appointment, I will double book the appointment, or book the appointments every half an hour.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Now, if you call me and try and one call close me and I'm in the car and then you tell me I'm going to send my Calendly link and then we're going to set it up for whatever time later. When you get back on the phone with them, what's your kind of opening process to kind of lend credibility to yourself? And I'd assume probably try and keep it condensed to where it's not like this very long and arduous process.
Yeah, so over the phone, you have to be faster. And this is when I say, hey, Mary, I'm just getting back to you for our scheduled 1 o'clock appointment to go over the information on mortgage protection. And then I'll get right into the, did you recently refinance or purchase your home? Then they answer, and I just verified that information on the top portion of the financial inventory. Ask them their date of birth, their birthday. And then what I say is I pause there because first I just want them to start answering questions from me because when they're answering questions, they're in control. Um, Sorry, to back up, what I do first is always ask them to get a pen and paper. So you always have them go grab a pen and paper, you give them your name, and sometimes depending on if I feel like they're rushed or not, I'll have them write my cell phone number down even though they already have it on the phone. So first the pen and paper, then you go into the financial inventory, getting them to answer the questions on the top section. And then what I do is I say, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Marcie Wingate, and I protect 10 to 12 families every single day over the phone. I work with 15 top carriers as an independent broker. I'm not attached to these companies in any way. I'm just simply working for my clients, trying to find something that's comfortable and affordable for them. Some of the companies that I work for are Mutual of Omaha, John Hancock, Americo. Have you heard of some of those, Mary? And then they say, oh, yeah, John Hancock. And then I just keep asking them questions. And I make sure, because what I wasn't doing in the beginning is going over the entire financial inventory over the phone, but you have to do the entire financial inventory just like it's a regular appointment.
Very interesting. Okay. What would you say becomes the biggest objection you have to overcome on a telesale? And what are some of the things you do preventatively to avoid it?
What I've realized is the same objections as in home. It's, oh, I just have to think about it. Or the one thing that will get you is if they're not with their spouse. I still will run the appointment anyway. And I have a high percentage of people that will want to think about it and then will get back to me and then want to submit the application. And I just say, oh, this is just the pre-qualification process. It's going to take 3 days to find out if you get qualified or not. And so we submit the application, and yeah, so those are the real main objections, or the price. But I always, I think my price per policy is pretty high because I always try to cover the whole mortgage. So I'm always trying to protect them fully, and a lot of people will just want to do that.
Yeah, makes sense. What's your lead flow look like? Percentage, mortgage, internet, all that good jazz.
So it's kind of evolved over the last 6 months. So the first couple months I was doing mostly internet leads with mostly one call closes. Even though I started booking the appointments through Calendly with that, and that still was pretty effective. I sell a lot of about half 1 to 3 month mortgage, about a quarter 1 to 3 month final expense mailers. I was looking at my numbers 2 weeks ago and I sold 10 final expense mailers policies. So those have been really good too. And then about a quarter to maybe 30-40% of a mailer campaign.
Got it. Okay. How many states would you recommend someone getting into telesales should get licensed? Or does it even matter? Is one enough?
I have about 15 states. I know some people like to work in like a lot of different states, but I primarily work out of 4 states. So I find 4 states will give me enough lead flow, enough, just enough people that I can try to touch those 30% of people that want the coverage no matter what. So
Yeah.
You know, I prefer to work like that. And I also, one thing that I found that people like over the phone is when I say, oh, I work out of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And it makes people feel like, oh, this is her like territory, sort of.
Mm.
Even though, you know, I am working leads on the East Coast and I don't always say that, but it that definitely I feel like makes a difference in what I'm doing around here.
Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier selling, you know, on the East Coast. Were you kind of strategic in that, kind of knowing your, you know, your time zone and obviously the way you run your schedule, you're really extending your schedule or extending the time that you can talk to people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's great. So I'm an early morning riser. So if I can get an appointment or two in the morning before my kids get up or, you know, back on the East Coast, it really makes a difference in getting those you know, one or two extra appointments per day. And, you know, there's certain states that I found that do work better than other states. So it's just a trial and error kind of thing.
I'm glad you said that trial and error was easy. You took the words out right out of my mouth. So I think one of the things I find with new agents, just in general, whether it be telesales or regular, they're kind of afraid of that trial and error. They're afraid to, hey, like I'm going to go get leads and, you know, in Washington and do the telesales or whatever. I'd assume you've probably tried different things and had the error, but it didn't discourage you, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've tried a lot of different lead types from different lead companies. I've tried um, the call-in leads, the call-in. I don't really particularly like those, like all web leads or something like that. Yeah, and then different states, you have to just commit to being in this business for the long haul. So you figure out what works for you specifically, and you know, I think a little bit of everything can work a lot until you find your what your niche is.
Yeah, I love that. Now you're also building a team, and one of the things I loved when we met was you're very offensive, meaning like you came into this and you just do things. You don't seem to overanalyze or overthink. You kind of know where you're headed. I think you told me, what was it, a 5-year plan, if I remember correctly? You
Mm.
talked about.
Oh yeah, I'm committed to 5 years no matter what. I'm gonna.
Tell us about your 5-year plan because I like the way that you put it when we met.
Yeah, so